I wanted to address this Charlie Kirk assassination. And first, before I say anything, my heart goes out to Charlie Kirk's family at this time. My condolences go out to you, and I wish you a very gentle healing process. And of course, you never heal from anything like this completely. But I pray that you get through this gently and delicately, not too harsh. With that being said, I wanted to address this, I would say, unfortunate act. Let's be clear. I am a man who is always speaking on things with a humanitarian spirit. Now, my coming up in Chicago has very little of where I am today, because I come up in an environment that is very segregated. And if you do your research on the history of Chicago, you will come to know that right now in 2025, we really can't look back at the historical account of Chicago when you're dealing with the race issue and assert that it is indeed history. Therefore, times that has passed on, and in terms of the human family is developing into a more universal state of mind, you will find out that Chicago has not changed when it comes to having segregated communities based on race and culture. I just want to say that. Considering coming up in an environment as such, you come to understand of how a whole lot of things that are transpiring in the environment are not beneficial to mankind as a whole. Because when you're dealing with the race issue, a lot of people get the race and the political issues confused with moral issues. When you're dealing with race, religion, and politics, those are simply the fragments of mankind being shattered into those different, I would say, logical compartments, so-called logical compartments. This killing of Kirk is extremely unfortunate, because he was a husband and he was a father. Now, I've always talked about how very dangerous information is itself. All of these different spheres of information that we call point of views, which always oppose one another, because the very root of information itself is chaos. It's chaos. So the human family has been miseducated by being educated, if that is clearly understood. Considering what happened to Kirk, you see a lot of people in the Black community celebrating this man's death. And I've seen only just a couple of whites celebrating his death. Now, people have told me, well, it was a white guy who killed him. Well, if I had a mentality like I used to have in terms of race, I would make this European young man who took his life, I would make that a big deal. But that's not where I'm at. I've grown out of that fragmented state of mind. However, as I said before, I'm not dealing with race and politics. I'm looking at this upon a moral stance. And to celebrate a man's death simply because you didn't agree with a lot of his point of views, that is just dead wrong. And a lot of you are dealing with the whole karma concept. And they say, well, he gave out hate and hate came back and killed. I mean, this reminds me of the whole chickens coming home to roost. And I've seen a lot of people utilize that Brother Malcolm had said in terms of when President Kennedy got assassinated. However, the way that part of Malcolm's life was given to us, him being able to explain objectively what he meant when he used that, a lot of people were cheated in knowing exactly what he meant by that. It's been explained in a few areas. However, the way that Brother Malcolm had explained it, he had said that the hate and everything that President Kennedy allowed to keep going and therefore decided not to put an end to it, that monster or Frankenstein that he allowed to create in his disinterest in resolving it or stopping it, it grew, and in time it came back and it took him. It assassinated him. Okay. The way that Brother Malcolm meant it, he was talking about cause and effect. He wasn't mocking the president's assassination. He was giving you a reasoning of how the environment was allowed to go further and further into immorality to the point where it got so out of control that it eventually came back and took out the president, who wasn't responsible enough to end all of the violence that was currently out there. So this is the reason why all of the turmoil that America was putting out during those times, it came back, and it was the cause of the assassination of President Kennedy. Now, when he explained it like that, he wasn't mocking it. He was just giving you a reason of how this reached back to America. Now, considering Charlie Kirk and his disposition towards Black people, the Black community, and a whole lot of the things that he was saying, a whole lot of Black people say, well, Charles didn't like Black people. He talked bad about Black people. I see no distinction from what he's accused of doing to what I see in my community every day. They say, well, he didn't like Black people. Black people don't like Black people. So you have all of these Black people out here celebrating his death. You did this with Brother Kevin Samuels when Kevin Samuels died. You celebrated his death. Why? Because you didn't like the way he was talking to Black women, and so that justifies mocking Kevin Samuels' death, the same as you think that simply because you didn't like the way that Kirk was talking about Black people, that justifies his assassination. So you're going off of race, not morality itself. I'm dealing with the morality of what transpired. The killing of another human being in spite of how he talked, in spite of how he felt, in spite of who he was or what he was. You want to know what else he was? He was a human being. He was a husband and he was a father. That was someone's grandson. That was someone's uncle. And you celebrate. You celebrate. And you talk about karma. So when you celebrate someone's unfortunate death, what type of karma do you think is going to come back to you with that mentality? I mean, you're getting on social media, you're laughing while someone else's family is crying. Why? Because he didn't like black folks. When black folks don't like black folks. Well, I didn't like what he said. Well, sometimes people don't like what you say. Do you deserve a bullet in your throat because people disagree with what you said? You know, you sound like back in the 60s when the white community didn't like what Brother Medgar Evers was talking about. They mocked his death. They didn't like what Brother Malcolm was talking about, even after he left the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. They still didn't like him. They still didn't like what he talked about. And then you go to Dr. King. Dr. King spoke against the Vietnam War. And when he actually decided to speak against war, that is when he truly became a follower of the example of Yeshua. And where did they shoot Dr. King? They shot Dr. King in the throat. Who laughed back in the 60s when all of these brilliant black leaders were shot down? It was the white community. It was some blacks who celebrated, but it was the majority was the white community who laughed when all of these brothers were shot down. And you get angry at them. Well, what's the distinction between how you feel about what happened to Kirk and how the whites felt about Medgar Evers, Brother Malcolm, and Dr. King? What's the distinction? Morally, what is the distinction? It's not about race. It's not about political parties. It's not what it's about. It's about humanity. It's about morality. Where are you morally in terms of what's transpiring in this world that we all have to live in? When Brother Kevin Samuels passed away, a lot of black women were praising. They were celebrating his death when the only thing he was doing was trying to help them. That's all he was doing. Even Vivica A. Fox got on there, and she mocked his death. You're mocking someone's passing. That's what you're doing. See, what race and politics does, those particular areas of information, those so-called, I would say, logical compartments, the Democrats and the Republicans, and you got the races and all of that. Those just are wicked doctrines that has been implanted in this environment, so that the human being who has to exist in this environment will eventually conform to the state of mind. And these state of minds create divisiveness in the human family. It creates divisiveness. And that's what it does. And it creates divisiveness, the racism, and all of these different things. It's a shame. See, when I was coming up, the elders used to tell us, you don't speak ill of the dead. You don't speak ill of the dead. If you don't have anything good to say about them, keep your mouth closed, because their families are in pain right now. And speaking ill of the dead, there's no distinction in seeing someone on the sidewalk who has a big gash in their leg and they're saying that their leg hurt, and you coming over and you continue to stab them in their open wound. You're making the pain worse. And if you do that, and if you speak ill of someone who has passed on while their families are grieving, where are you morally? But a lot of you are walking around here making these little videos. Oh, well, he didn't like black people, and this and that and the other, and I'm glad that he's dead. He wasn't doing anything indifferent than you do to one another every day of the damn week. You mock one another, you talk down one another, you attack one another on every level. Every single level, the black community is out destroying themselves on a daily basis. This is the daily basis. A friend of mine had brought up, well, Dave, didn't you say that you're not going to go to your father's funeral when he passes on? I told him yes. You done? Okay. As they say, it is not good to speak ill of the dead. How you speak of someone at that particular time is based upon the relationship that this person had, whether it's good or bad, whether it's good or bad. I've decided not to attend that funeral because the man had no respect for me. Everything that came out of his mouth, it was tragic. He didn't have any love and any respect. So by me being the oldest son, from what I know, I decided not to go. Because not only would I have to sit there and listen to people praise him because he was a pastor and speak out the relationship that they have with him, which is equivalent to the relationship that he was supposed to have with his own children. I'm not going to sit there and listen to that because I'm a very honest person. I'm very honest. And during times like that, people are going to always, firstly, want one of his male offspring to get up there and say a few words. And you don't want to hear my words because my relationship with this particular person is indifferent than it has been with everyone else. So you don't want to hear my take on this man's life. So simply because I know that is a possibility, because me being a very honest person, and I'm just going to just speak my mind. And by me not caring about how other people are going to feel with my saying that, telling the truth, I chose not to attend because everyone else's pain in there is not my pain. The man gave me a lot of pain, and I'm not going to stand up there and talk that way while I'm in the presence of people who loved him dearly, even though they didn't know him. And so it's best, don't say anything. Don't show up. Don't say anything. I have nothing to say. Move on. However, considering this based on race, politics, all of this derives from the effects of the propaganda machine that started during the election to bring Trump into office. And in my going on 62 years, I have never seen a president so hated in my life. I mean, you have people who serve on a daily basis on Facebook and on other social media outlets. They want the world to know how much they hate Trump. Like, who cares how much you hate Trump? He definitely doesn't care. Because considering everything that he's currently doing with the country right now, does that seem like a man who takes the time to care about how people think and feel of him? He's doing what he feels he has to do in order to clean up the mess that Biden left behind for him to deal with. So with my saying that, am I saying you should hate Biden or blame Biden? No, I'm not saying anything. But what I'm pointing to is that how everybody has been very dedicated on a daily basis to express their hatred for a man. I've never seen so much mental illness in my life. I mean, there's people who I grew up with who get up every morning typing on their Facebook, oh, I hate him, and he's a pedophile. Dude, do you have something else to do with your time? Do you really have time for this? And if you feel as though you do have time, then you're gravely mistaken, because time is sacred. And what is meant by that is that time is sacred. And that implies you don't know how much time you have left. So you should not waste time. I hate Trump, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? I mean, it's almost like they're in a contest. They all have this club that they belong to, and everybody every day is talking about how much they hate Trump. However, these people are Christians. These are the same people who wake up in the morning and write down their prayers. I just want to thank the Lord for waking me up this morning, and blah, 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 and I'm grateful for it, blah, blah, blah. The next paragraph after that is how much they hate Trump. Now, people may ask me, are you a Trump supporter? No. I don't involve myself with politics. I follow the example of Yeshua when he said, conform not to the things of this world. And he said that, of course, I'll say this again, my kingdom is not of this world. Because once you get involved with the politics and the religion and all of these things, you give yourself to areas of humanity that are fragments after humanity has been shattered, and therefore separated into these little so-called logical compartments. And you're not holding. You know, you sit up, you actually think people care about how much, just like Trump, who cares how much, it's like Trump. You're the one that's sitting up or walking around with all of this hatred sitting up inside of you. You're making yourself miserable because the person who you always propagating on how much you hate, he doesn't care. He's out there doing what he's supposed to do. And what do? Just sitting down, marinating on hate with your Christian self. And that's your daily delight. Hatred has become your daily delight. Who cares how much you hate Trump? And so a whole lot of the hatred that was propagated towards Trump simply because Trump and this young man have an affiliation. Now you're mocking his death simply because you can't mock Trump's death. That's where it all comes from. What you saw happen to Kirk, you want to happen to Trump. And you need to really check yourself on that. And if you talk about karma so much, let's say you're mocking this young man's death, okay? And you are talking about something that you perceive as divine, like karma, which is cause and effect. So what karma do you think is going to come back to you in the mocking of this young man's death? You are not exempt from karma simply because you are Black. You are not exempt from karma simply because you don't like the fact that this young man who just got assassinated, you think that he don't like Black people. You are not exempt from karma because of that. When you mock his death, it's going to come back on you because you have loved ones as well. And you have you as well. This is the reason why when things like this happen, you be quiet. Like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had told Malcolm, don't say anything with respect to the death of the president. Be quiet, Malcolm. Don't say anything because people loved him. The country loved him. And like the Bible say, mourn with those who mourn. Now, when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad put out a statement to the world that he corrected Malcolm and suspended Malcolm for the next 90 days, he said, we as the Nation of Islam, the Black Muslims, we mourn as well as with everyone. Now, a lot of people from my discussions when we would get together in various colleges out here at the community college, they were saying that Elijah Muhammad was a hypocrite. I've told them, y'all don't understand, because even the Quran tells you to mourn with those who mourn. It means mourn with those who mourn. It's not talking about a particular race of people. We have to also understand that death visits us all. And we have to respect it. And we have to have compassion when it comes to how death affects other people. Because coming up in this flesh, we grow attachments along with our emotional attachments, like love and all of those things. And when one of our loved ones pass on, there's a whole lot of pain, and you have to respect it. Or at least you should respect it. And if you don't, that's unfortunate. Only you, not them. When it comes to karma, that's unfortunate. So the way that karma operates is when the Creator sees you doing something immoral, and you feel as though that's morally correct, and you send that out into the universe to where there's God and a universe passing judgment on what you did. And when that karma comes back to you, then what? Then you have the nerve to wonder, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening? Because that's what you put out. And the universe sees justice in a whole different manner. than we do. You know, Brother Malcolm gave one of his speeches one time, and he said, "You haven't done the right thing by my people. And because you haven't done the right thing by my people, now I've got to do the right thing by you." He was talking about karma. When you do something that is not right, and you put that in the universe analyzes it, and the universe judges it the right thing based upon your wrong thing, and it sends justice to you. And that justice is right according to the laws and function of God and the universe. And despite if you feel as though what is being done to you is wrong, it is right in the eyes of God and the universe. So you have to be careful of what you put out. You have to learn how to be silent. In spite of how he talked about black people, stop walking around here and acting like that you're gonna do the same damn thing. You do the same damn thing. Oh, he's racist. You do the same damn thing. So that means you're racist. I'm glad he's dead, because he can't talk bad about us while you continuously talking bad about us. You're just a bunch of hypocrites. You're just a bunch of hypocrites. It's a shame. The problem with a lot of you, when it comes to people like Kirk and other people who you consider racist or against black people, or even other black people in the community. The problem with a lot of us is that you're too concerned about what people think and feel about. And in that you make yourself a slave to public opinions. I've even heard people say, I don't see how Trump can walk around like he does, knowing that so many people in the world hate him, because he's not concerned about public opinion and how people feel about him. His mind is strictly just focusing on getting the country. So as far as I'm concerned, he's spitballing because he doesn't care how you feel about it. That's another reason why a whole lot of you use so much of your time. Trump is this, we all hate Trump. Let's talk about Trump, blah, 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 blah. You're wasting a lot of time talking about how much you hate a man who doesn't even care about how you feel about him. And why should he care? Why should he care? I've become the same way. Why should he care? Why should I care? And why do you care about how people think and feel about you? You make yourself a slave in that way. So, as far as I'm concerned, a lot of you have set yourselves up with some karma that's getting ready to come back to you because of the way that you reacted, the way that you responded to this young man's assassination. He's no different than any other family member in your family, simply because he's white. That doesn't make him any different. What was done to them was immoral. What was done to him was immoral. And he said, well, another white man killed him. Right. It was an immoral act. Does it matter if the killer was black or white or whatever? What he did was immoral. Look at what was done on a moral basis and keep your mind clear. Get rid of all this race stuff and this political stuff. and understand how very dangerous information is and how it causes divisiveness in the human family. And I'm going to bring up one Black leader that is the most loved, who put out divisive language, Brother Malcolm. When he was in Selma, Alabama, and he spoke about the house Negro and the field Negro. Once that information got out, now you have Black people accusing one another. Oh, you ain't nothing but a house nigga. You a house nigga. I'm a field nigga. See, that comes from effects of information. Now, if that information was took in only as information, which is to me it was just giving you information on the status of Black people on the plantation, but that information wasn't given to you in order to cause divisiveness in the community. Now, I don't know what his intentions are, so I'm going to have to backtrack. However, that type of information going out, it causes nothing but divisiveness, because you see that today. Oh, you a house nigga. Oh, you a coon. You this, you that. That's no distinction than the people that's going around saying, oh, you're negative energy. You're a low vibrational person. Positive vibes only. Low vibrational and all of that nonsense. What happened to this young man could easily happen to any of you, no matter what race or community you say that you belong to. It can happen to any of us. And I asked you a question. If it happened to one of your loved ones, how would you feel to get on the social media and see someone mocking the death of one of your loved ones? Would you like it? Would you like it? Would you find a justification for that if you talk to one of these people? Because no matter what they say, you can't justify it. It was immoral. And you celebrating immorality, you're cultivating some karma. So the same karma that you feel that he created for himself in your response to this assassination, just know that you created some karma for yourself when you mocked him in his death instead of just being quiet. Hold on to your humanity, no matter what happens. Understand that as much as you don't want to accept it, we're all in this together. We are all in this together. This is a very short response video from the other one that I made earlier today about the Charlie Kirk assassination. And of course, I've got had a bunch of angry emails from people. I'm not surprised. I mean, this is a very sensitive subject about a man that undoubtedly offended a whole lot of people, black and white. My whole implication of stressing in the video is to keep your eye on the fact that humanity is falling this day. You know, now some of the emails I was supposed to have gotten offended by those emails, but I'm not, because I don't have time to worry about people being offended. The only thing that I'm concerned about is humanity not losing more of itself, because the world is consistently going into darkness. It's consistently going into darkness. Not enough of us are responsible of trying to make things better for ourselves, you know, trying to invest in humanity makes everything better for everyone. You know, and this is what I don't understand, how so many of us get so offended by other person's point of view to where you would actually shoot and kill somebody in broad daylight, whether it's black or white. You know, there's a lot of black people that were saying, well, it's one of their own killed. Well, it's one of our own that's killing us every day in Chicago, to the point to where they have to send the National Guard in order to restore some order where we supposed to be living. The world is going into darkness, and this whole race issue it has everybody's mind clouded. And of course, even with Charlie Kirk, he dealt with a whole lot of race issues, you know. And so even though it was someone so-called from his own community that took his life, it still doesn't erase the fact that you can't kill somebody simply because they have a different viewpoint than you. You know, if it gets to that, if it gets further into that, how long are we going to allow these kind of things to transpire? How long are we going to allow what our historical accounts and what is happening currently in terms of both these communities force us to lose our humanity when something like this transpires? My point was, humanity is constantly falling. It's constantly falling. As it was back in the 60s, where people were getting assassinated in broad daylight. This is happening again. This is happening again. So what I'm saying is, don't allow race to permit you to lose yourself, lose your humanity. There was a young woman who made a video. I don't recall her name, but she left her church because her church showed empathy for Charlie Kirk. Now, this isn't Christian. She left her church because they showed empathy for Charlie Kirk, when Yeshua had showed empathy for us on the cross when he said, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." But she left her church because her church showed empathy for this young man's death. However, she couldn't look past She couldn't perceive past her anger and the thought that she thinks that this young man was racist and he said this about black people and he said that about black people. Well, aren't you supposed to be in the spirit? This is why Yeshua had said, until a man or a woman is born again, you cannot see the kingdom of God. You have to be born again in the spirit. So you have to die to the current self in order for you to understand empathy when you see it. Well, you better start showing some empathy. Because if you look at our community, we're still killing each other. And now the white community is shooting each other dead in broad daylight. And a lot of us are too caught up in our anger of what this young man was talking about. And it's pretty much the same that what we talk about every single day. That you just cannot see the immorality of where the world is going this day. You're leaving your church because your church is showing empathy for a man who got shot in his throat in broad daylight. And simply because you didn't like what he said based upon the information that he was distributing out, you have no compassion. And you can't see how this is affecting you as a human being. So what are you going to do? You're going to leave the church. You're going to get upset. How long? How long are you going to carry this around? How long are you going to carry this around? Are you going to get angry and not show any, and not cooperate with any empathy and then leave the church and then go spew your anger towards everyone else and make other disciples based upon how you feel? That's not making matters better. It's just making matters worse. But I said this was going to be a short video because I'm not going to harp on this for too much longer because it doesn't matter. This is just the beginning. And the way that a whole lot of people are reacting to this instead of responding to it. This is indeed the beginning of dark times coming. Unless something transpires that's going to turn things around. The only way that things are going to be turned around is by us. The world will never become a better place to live until we choose to become better human beings. You gotta die to your anger. You gotta show some civilization. You don't sound civilized, mocking a person's death, no matter what color he is. Because, like I said before, you did this to Brother Kevin Samuels when he passed away. And he was a black man. Now here's a young white man. He shot in his throat. You show no empathy there. So where are we going? And it's the same thing. You didn't like what Kevin Samuels was talking about. You didn't like what Kirk was talking about. So you're saying that they deserve death. This is what you're saying. They deserve it. So is this the mentality that we're going to move forward with? If that's the case, just know for me, I'm not with you. I'm only concerned about humanity becoming better. And I know that a whole lot of these entities that were created, things like racism and political and all of those things are not doing anything but destroying us inside and out. So with that being said, I'm going to cut this short. And you can keep sending your angry emails if you want, because calling me Uncle Tom, I don't care about those things. I mean, to me, those things are childish. name calling. That's what we used to do in elementary school and grammar school. You have a bunch of people, like y'all always say, grown, writing those type of emails. I could care less. I'm just letting you know. You can continue. I'm not even gonna block your email. I'm gonna let you keep writing them, keep writing. And I'm not going to respond to it because I want you to see yourself. I'm not going to go back. For what? What good is that going to do me? So with that being said, everyone have a good night. And stay